I don't consider myself to be very good at competitive Pokemon, okay? So don't come here all, oh my god, you suck, I don't even know why you're playing, much less making videos about this. I'll be the first to tell you, I've got a lot to learn. For example, today I went up against a Poltegeist that nearly annihilated me because I treated it like a Sinistcha. I don't think I've ever even encountered Poltegeist before, so I just sort of assumed it would be like Sinistcha. It was not, and it nearly cost me the match. Completely misreading a Pokemon and having an absolutely disastrous turn 1 where my Slowking had Trick Room locked and took a Bitter Malice straight to the face while my Kingambit failed a Sucker Punch was brutal. But this is, after all, Ultra Ball. And if I can have a turn 1 like that and still win the match, I think I must be at least okay at this, right? I mean, last season I got on a 7-win streak that took me from Ultra Ball Tier 4 to Ultra Ball Tier 2 before I finally lost a match. My biggest issue, I think, is that I build my own teams, but this video isn't about me. This video is about you, if you're one of the players out there struggling to win in Poke and Great Ball. Because as I climbed through the ranks both this and last season, I took notes into my notebook about how matches played out. Until I hit Ultra Ball, players almost never used Protect. And I get why. If you're a newer player looking online for tips for Pokemon Champions, you'll end up at IGN or Game8 or whatever, and they'll talk about know your type advantages and stuff like that. They don't talk about priority moves and the single most important move in competitive Pokemon, Protect. And I've seen this help backfire firsthand in a match I should have lost because the opponent's Basculegion had a guaranteed KO against my Slowking with Aqua Jet, because Slowking was at 19 HP. We were inside of Trick Room, so without priority, Slowking moved first, and Basculegion was also at 9% and had taken an accuracy drop from Muddy Water. 75% of the time, Aqua Jet wins. 1 in 4 times it misses, and then Slowking wins 90% of the time with Muddy Water. But the opponent saw not very effective listed for Aqua Jet, and saw super effective or whatever it says for Pokemon Champions. It says something different that isn't put super effective, and I don't remember now what it was. But he saw that for Last Respects, and the opponent went for Last Respects. Because the opponent chose super effective damage over weaker priority damage, Muddy Water hit first, and Basculegion was knocked out. And I won the match. I won because they valued type advantages too much. But that's a video that I'm going to do for another day. My point right now is that the information you'll find on those mainstream sites is not very helpful. If you really want to learn, you need to go to vgcguide.com, a site with which I have no affiliation. So in the Poltegeist match, I made what I must say is a phenomenal play. I pivoted to Slowking later on in the match. Having noticed that my opponent repeats a line if it is successful, I knew that they would then Bitter Malice the Slowking and would pivot their Milotic back to Poltegeist in order to use Imprison again and stop my Slowking from using Trick Room. So I protected with Slowking and pivoted my other Mon to Kingambit. Sure enough, they switched out Milotic for Poltegeist, and Zoroark used Bitter Malice into a Protect. On the next turn, Venusaur came in for Slowking and took minor damage from the Bitter Malice. Poltegeist used Imprison, and Kingambit's Kowtow Cleave dropped the Poltegeist like a stone. This was a sequence made possible by Protect and by predicting my opponent. If you hit with Flamethrower for super effective damage and the Mon is in KO range of one more, don't expect your opponent to just leave that Pokemon out there. For some reason, the opponent thought that I would just let my Slowking sit out there and be destroyed by Bitter Malice. I had already protected, demonstrating that I did not want my Slowking to go down, so why would I let it go down a turn later, if I could prevent it? When I first wrote the script for this video, 4 out of 6 of my team had Protect. Incineroar and Pangoro did not, because their jobs were not to sit on the field turn after turn. But today, it's actually all 6. You may think I'm crazy to refer to Protect as the most important move in the game, but yesterday I encountered this. I led with Slowking, Dragonite. They led with Whimsicott, Glimmora. They used Spiky Shield with Glimmora, which is just Protect, and Tailwind with Whimsicott. My Dragonite wasted a turn using Thunder Punch into Whimsicott. It didn't have anything better, but it broke the sash, and I needed to burn a turn and wasn't ready to Protect yet. Because on turn 2, my Dragonite did use Protect. Whimsicott attempted to use Prankster Encore to ruin my day, but my Slowking has a Mental Herb, so the Encore didn't work. Next, my Slowking used Muddy Water and knocked Glimmora down to about a third of its HP and Whimsicott down to about half. Glimmora then used Power Gem into Dragonite's Protect. The opponent immediately forfeit. Both of their Mons were in KO range of almost any neutral attack. They had achieved nothing, and thanks to their Tailwind, all of their Pokémon were guaranteed to act after my Pokémon for the next 3 turns. An insurmountable advantage wrought entirely because they used Power Gem into Protect and accomplished nothing. You don't always want to protect though. In one of the matches here in the video that you're watching, I was not at all upset about my Slowking going down, because it meant that my Camerupt entered in between turns, which can be extremely valuable. If you have to swap out a Pokemon, then the new arrival cannot act. However, if you send in a Pokemon to replace a KO'd one, the new arrival can act. Should you always let your Pokemon faint for a, quote, free pivot? Definitely not, but sometimes it's useful, and sometimes you want to protect. You have options, is what I'm saying. Let's say your opponent has Charizard and Alakazam on the field, and you have Venusaur and some other Pokemon. Now obviously, leaving Venusaur exposed against Charizard and Alakazam is dangerous. So your opponent thinks, perfect, we double target Venusaur. Charizard uses Flamethrower, Alakazam uses Psychic. But Venusaur protected that turn. Suddenly, their entire turn collapses. Instead of knocking out Venusaur, they do no damage, and your second Pokemon gets a free turn to do whatever it wants. It can attack, set up, heal, pivot, set status, set speed control, whatever is most useful to you in that moment. And now, you can pivot Venusaur out into something safer. Maybe Hisuian Samurott. Chances are good you're not running Hisuian Samurott, but maybe you have something that resists Flamethrower and Psychic, and you can put that in that slot instead. I think that's what a lot of people misunderstand about Protect when they don't put it on their teams. Protect is not really a defensive move. Protect is a positioning move. Once you understand that, the entire game changes because now you start thinking about Pokemon differently. You stop asking, how do I do the most damage? And start asking, what does my opponent want to accomplish this turn? And that's where the real game is. That's where competitive Pokemon starts looking a lot more like chess than people realize. And one of the biggest lessons that chess teaches you is this: the board state matters far more than the power of individual pieces. If you ask a chess player, what is your opponent trying to do? And their answer is, well, obviously they're trying to checkmate me, they don't understand the position or the game. Because that's not specific enough. What piece are they activating? What squares matter? What weaknesses are they targeting? And what exchanges are they trying to force? Competitive Pokemon works the same way. For example, if I see Pelipper and Archaludon at Team Preview, I already know a lot. They probably want Rain, probably Tailwind, probably Fast Pressure. So how do I respond to that? My answer is usually Slowking, because Trick Room flips their own speed control against them, and Chilly Reception gives me Snow, which neutralizes their weather. Again, I've actually replaced Chilly Reception with Psychic on my Slowking, which is interesting because Chilly Reception was the reason that I used Slowking in the first place instead of Slowbro, but now I'm finding that the special defense of Slowking is so much more useful than the physical defense of Slowbro. Back to the subject, one of the biggest mistakes that I see newer players, and I'm assuming this is applicable to people in Poke and Great Tiers as I was making my way through the ranks, one of the biggest mistakes I see those players make is overcommitting. They want immediate damage, immediate pressure, immediate knockouts, and sometimes that works. But if your entire game plan collapses because your opponent used Protect, then you don't have a game plan. You have a vague notion of throwing rock and hoping they don't throw paper. A strong strategy survives interaction. A strong strategy survives disruption. If one Protect completely dismantles your position, then your setup was too fragile to begin with. This is also why Protect is often a really good choice on the first turn that a Pokemon enters the battle, because your opponent usually doesn't know your full intentions yet, and you don't know what your opponent can do to that Pokemon you just sent in. So Protect becomes incredibly safe because you don't know which one of your mons they're prioritizing, and you might not know what they can do to hurt the new Pokemon that you sent in. And if you Protect with your Venusaur and find out that they do in fact have Flamethrower on their Zoroark, well, that information is extremely valuable because now you know not to leave your Venusaur sitting out there to eat that Flamethrower, unless you have something else in mind. But I do want to be clear that I'm not saying always click Protect. Protect can absolutely lose games. If you become predictable with it, strong players will exploit you. But what I'm saying is, it looks to me that newer players dramatically undervalue how much positional power Protect creates. And I think that's because a lot of people are playing the wrong genre of game. They think competitive Pokemon is about type matchups and damage. But it's not. Competitive Pokemon, competitive doubles, it's a strategy game. The turn-based combat is just the medium through which the strategy is expressed. And Protect is one of the clearest examples of that, because Protect forces your opponent to prove that they understand the position as well as you do. Recently, I had a game where I correctly predicted a Sucker Punch, and instead of attacking into it, I pivoted. Not because I'm psychic, but because once you understand what your opponent wants to do, certain lines become very obvious. They needed to KO my Pokemon before my Pokemon could do damage, and one more hit, one Sucker Punch would KO my Pokemon. And I knew they had Sucker Punch, so I pivoted. And Protect is what taught me to do that. It taught me patience. It taught me information gathering, positioning, respect for my opponent's intentions. Anyway, so those are my thoughts on Protect. I'm still learning. I'm still making mistakes. I'm still climbing. I am not Wolfie VGC, guys, but I'm trying to help newer players who are undervaluing Protect. And I think just adding Protect to their rotations and trying it out and using it here and there will substantially improve their play. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful day.